Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of the Bourne Property Show.
Yes, hello there everybody, it's Mike Collenby, I'm the Operations Manager at Hill & Clark, and I'm with my learned friend Lewis Thorogood, Residential Sales Manager over at the Bourne office.
How you doing?
Very well indeed, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah,
Good,
busy week, can't complain.
Very good week, very good week. We're starting to see a lot of exchanges come through this week, which is always good to hear.
It is, yes, yeah, it's reaping the rewards for our efforts, which is really good.
Getting people moved, that's what we're here for at the end of the day, so fantastic. Let's give you a bit of an idea of what's coming up on the broadcast today. First of all, we're going to be discussing the recent Rightmove price index, which was announced earlier in the week, which will give you a bit of an idea of what's happening on across the country, and we'll also have a look at what's happening in our own region. Off the back of that, we're also going to take a look at the Daily Telegraph and the Telegraph, which has announced where the best places to live in the UK are, and on top of that, our agent's advice tonight is going to be giving you some help if you haven't sold your property since the new year. If you came into 2018 with the decision to move and to sell your property, and you're still sat on the market after 10 weeks, we're going to give you some advice and some help in today's broadcast just on how we can get you moving. So whether that's on the market locally or right across the region, the tips we're going to give you will help you if you are a home seller. So Lewis, shall we start off with tonight's hot topic, which is obviously the Rightmove price index?
Yeah, the latest information literally came out yesterday for Rightmove, and we'll kind of look at two elements of it. We'll look at this region, and obviously we'll look nationally as well. This region, again, really good news. House prices increased again. So in March, prices, also from the research they've produced for this month, prices increased by 0.1%.
Yep.
But they've risen 4% year on year in this area, and the average house price as of the start of March of this year was 217,000, or just shy of 218,000, which is quite accurate to this area, because that sort of price will get you a kind of standard 3-bedroom detached house in the Bourne marketplace.
The other interesting thing, Lewis, again, if we look back to one of our broadcasts right back in week 2 or 3 of January, we were talking about what we thought the market was going to do in the first quarter and for the rest of the year. Again, we forecast those predictions in house price increases in the first quarter. Our expectation was that we thought by about midway through the year the average sale price was going to be about 225.
Yep.
So we're not far off that at 218 already. And we were also forecasting about a 4% increase by half year, with a potential growth of up to about 7% by year end. So we're already starting off probably a little bit slower just with that sort of increase year to date.
Yep.
But I think the forecast year on year was 4%. So and again, I think we're also expecting potentially this year, because obviously we had the unsettlement of Brexit last year, and also the interest rate increase back end of last year, which obviously made the market wobble a little bit obviously last year as well. But obviously the forecasts are good for this year. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago again about interest rates, again that they're holding their own at the moment, but there is some talk at the moment of obviously your bank borrowing rate looking to be increased from next month. If that's the case, sometimes that can put a bit of a different angle on the housing market. So potentially in the next 6 to 8 weeks there may be some affecting factors in the marketplace which could affect the local housing market as well as national, and obviously as and when anything happens there, we will come straight back to you and let you know.
Yeah, very much so. And the other really encouraging bit of news as well is that the average time to sell in this area, as per Rightmove, so they take all the estate agents into account, is now averaging 58 days. So that's gone down. That's gone down considerably, actually. That's gone down by 19 days from the last report, which shows real signs of the marketplace being positive. There's a good level of buyers out there that we touched on last week. And nationally, the house prices are on the increase as well. The monthly change in terms of the national average has gone up by 1.5%. Annual change year on year, an increase of 2.1%. So everything's looking really buoyant out there in the housing market in terms of house prices, which is reflecting really on what we're doing here as well. Averaging 97% of the actual asking price. So really buoyant out there in the market.
Good. So often Easter, spring, is one of the times where traditionally people tend to think that it's a good time to put your house on the market. Let's get the dark nights out of the way, the winter, the bad weather, all those sorts of things. 2 weeks ago, on a Thursday we were all under several inches of snow and the whole country had come to a standstill. We're now looking out there and it's lighter in the morning, it's lighter in the evening. slightly better temperatures there.
And by Easter, we still could be under snow, so they're saying.
Yes.
So, yes.
Easter is on its way.
Yes, over. Good, very
Thank
good.
you very much.
Yeah.
There we go. So, yeah, you know, there is obviously, say that sort of natural period at this time of year for people to start thinking about making that move. A lot of people also get to sort of spring and start thinking about school times in for the summer. So if they've got children going up to a secondary school, and they've had those plans made even from back end of last year when they were looking at schools to try and get the kids the placements, now is often a time when people start to think about where they will looking to be moving to near a school. So you know, people sort of tend to tie in that it could take sort of 3 to 6 months for that sale and transaction to go through, and obviously that's going to take to the August and September period. So now is a very, very active time in the marketplace. What we wanted to talk to you about tonight is if you placed your property on the market in January and you were thinking, obviously, as I say, to make that move this year, and you are still sitting on the market, there are several things that as a vendor that you should be talking to with your agent, or better still, your agent should be talking to you, to be fair. But we're going to discuss a couple of those things in tonight's broadcast as well. So should we have a look at that next in tonight's Agent's Advice? So, Lewis, excuse me. We were talking obviously about what the house market's doing.
Yeah.
And obviously you're very, very busy at the moment. Lots of new properties that are coming on the market. I think I heard you talking to a vendor earlier that in the last several weeks you've sold over £3 million worth of property.
Correct, yeah.
So the signs are very, very good. You're a very, very proactive office in here, as we are across all of our offices, sales offices across the region. But obviously there will be a lot of people out there that put the house on the market in the new year and are thinking, I haven't sold. So have we got any numbers that you can quantify in regard to your local market?
Yeah, looking at an independent source in terms of all the properties that are on the market in the Bourne area, 46 properties remain on the market for 10 weeks or more within Bourne and the villages, which is quite a staggering amount, really. Yeah. You know, that's a good third of the, if not more, of the housing market that's actively for sale at the moment within Bourne and the villages region. And I think in a marketplace where, you know, contrary to what maybe people are saying and contrary to what maybe people are thinking with the period of snow we've had and the cold weather and people thinking therefore that, you know, the housing market's suddenly gone quiet, that's quite a staggering amount of properties that remain to the marketplace. Yeah,
definitely. So what would you be thinking, or you know, if you're a vendor, more importantly at the moment, what sort of things do you think that those sort of vendors must be thinking after this period?
Yeah, I think the first thing you've got to look at is actually how many viewings they've had so far.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can sometimes get hung up and caught up a little bit with statistics.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of people that will quote click-through rates. There'll be a lot of people that quote hits on websites, and you know, the amount of time people have looked at the property online, which is great, and that is, of course, is a starting point. That's inquiry generation. That's no different to saying you might have, you know, 20 people that you've sent the details out to and spoken to 15 people. Yeah. Ultimately, as a seller, it's viewings which are the key, and it's viewings which mean prizes. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
So the first question I'd be actually asking my agent is right, how many viewings have I had in this 10-week plus period?
Yeah.
What kind of level of viewings have we got? You know, because the best will in the world, if you're just getting the odd one or two in what is a very buoyant and busy market with prices improving, that isn't a healthy level to be having.
Okay, so that's the first question, obviously, as you are a homeowner, is to be looking at how many viewings you've had. The next thing that you may want to look at is obviously then the feedback that you're getting from them viewings. So again, let's just talk about feedback and that sort of thing with you then, Lewis.
Yeah, I think, you know, feedback needs to be quite honest, and it needs to be quite straight, and it needs to be as it is, and it needs to be constructive as well. I think that's really important. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, that this property wasn't for them, and you know, these little one-liners which doesn't really have any context to it, hasn't really got any body to it. You know, ultimately as a seller, if your home isn't selling, you will look at 3 or 4 reasons. You will look at your own price, you will look at potentially your estate agent, but you will also look at yourself. You'll look at your own home and go, right, what do we need to improve? What do we need to change? What can we do? What can we invest? And there's many different ways you can invest into both marketing and indeed the selling of your home when it comes to getting it to a level where you're starting to get offers. So from my perspective, it's a case of what's the feedback? Is there a pattern? And if there's a pattern, what can we do about it? It might be the case as the seller that we go away and we take stock for a week or two and we do some a bit of work and a little bit of improvement to our home in little areas.
Yeah.
It might be the case of actually what can the estate agent do to actually improve the marketing, which we'll touch on very shortly.
Yeah.
So we're looking at constructive feedback, and I think a lot of the time the best feedback comes from when the estate agent does the viewing.
Okay. So do you find that potentially a viewer wouldn't want to upset a vendor if they're going around their home at the end of the day, but a bit more honest maybe with an agent?
And that's what you want. No one wants to be in that position where they're going around a home with that owner and actually deep down they don't like this, they don't like that, they're not very happy with this, and they don't want to say that because they don't want to offend them. No one wants that. None of us want that in our home. So there is always going to be that slightly polite and softer element of feedback, which sometimes can then surprise a vendor when they actually receive different feedback to what they felt they got at the viewing. Okay. So what we like to do is encourage us to accompany as many viewings as possible, all the viewings really, during our working hours, to enable us to get honest, constructive and candid feedback that we can work with.
Okay, so that's one key thing that we want to drop in there for you, that again, if you are getting lots of viewings on the property and you're finding it's still not selling, get that feedback from your agent, but maybe ask the agent to come over and do the viewings for you. Again, they are the agent, they're the expert, they're the salespeople. Let's get them involved and see whether they can get some slightly different feedback on viewings when they're undertaking them for you. You mentioned just briefly there about viewings in office hours.
Yeah.
I do know that you guys run around sort of all weekend, Saturdays and Sundays later in the evening. Again, you guys have been saying to me you can't wait for the lighter evenings because you can get out and do more viewings in an evening. Sometimes a viewer, if they have busy lifestyles and working, etc., especially in that top end bracket, sometimes it is the case where the best time to do the evening, the viewing maybe is on an evening at 6 o'clock, late on a Saturday afternoon, or even on a Sunday. So again, it's worth you actually talking to your agent to say, look, why don't we hold up something like an open day? Yeah. That's something that I know that you guys have done in the past as well. So another little top tip in there again is if you want to create a lot of activity quickly, an open day is something to consider to boost those viewings as well, maybe.
Great, especially if you're launching your home to the market as a new instruction, or if you do decide to amend the price of your home by a significant amount. And when we say that, obviously the minimum amount that the websites acknowledge is 2%, but actually if you start taking a £5,000, £10,000, £15,000 drop for whatever reason, that is a substantial amount which is worth doing something a bit different and off the norm. So even if it's the case of speaking to your agent and saying, look, could we do a weekend only price? Yeah. We're on at this price, but actually let's do an open house, let's market it for a week beforehand at a weekend only price to see what activity that can draw and offers we get. I'm
going to jump straight in there, something that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, but you talked about price and reducing your price. Again, in our jobs, where we've been doing this job a good number of years, we often hear time and time again, well, the only thing they keep talking to me about in order to get it sold is the price. And the argument is always, well, you told me that was the recommended asking price to put it on the market, and here we are 8 weeks later asking me to bring the price down. So what sort of things could an agent be doing before we even consider pricing?
Yeah, I think they need to be looking at their overall marketing strategy first and foremost. So have we exhausted all the options? Yep. Have we done an open house? When we've launched it to the market, have we launched it to the market in the best possible way? So does your agent offer professional photos? Do they offer a video tour? Are they covering all the websites? Are they using social media? Has it had a good run in the newspaper? Can the agent honestly and accurately say that they've spoken to their database of buyers, they've followed it up and they've looked at all the opportunities? Okay. Is the price of your home sat in one of the key bandings on the websites to maximise traffic and to maximise activity? So
again, this is something we spoke about a few weeks ago. Just very, very quickly, just explain about key banding on price brackets for us. So again, if you're sitting there at the market at $249,950, tell me what's wrong with that.
If you're sitting there at a price like that, you're not maximising your inquiries on the websites and the traffic.
So we mean Rightmove mainly. Rightmove, Zoopla on the market.
Yeah, all the property all the property portals, all the portals we use will work by these bandings. So if you're on at 249,950, for the sake of 50 quid, bring it up to 250,000. It's a cleaner and more clean cut figure, but also it means that any buyer that's looking up to 250,000, which in that market would be the family home. So any buyer that's looking up to 250,000, it will come into their search. Equally, any buyer that's looking from 250,000, it's also going to go into their search as well. Okay. So it's maximising the opportunities. It's doubling your chances.
Exactly. We always say 2 bites to the cherry on this. So often, as I say, when you're looking at, again, if you go onto Rightmove now, you'll see that the bandings go, for example, 200 to 220, 220 to 250, and then 250 to 280. Okay, so you're getting 2 bites of the cherry for the sake of that extra £50, right?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so that's a key thing. Sometimes your agent will say, it's 99p, not a pound. Sometimes it's actually to put it on better on as a pound.
Yeah.
That's why it's called the pound shop, not the 99p shop.
Correct.
Okay, so that's something really interesting. Look at your asking price. Okay. So that's the pricing side of things, and the banding. What other things, again, could the agent be giving advice to the vendor to be looking at in regard to things like you mentioned about photography? Is there anything else that we may want to consider in regard to photographs?
Well, I think obviously this all comes under the bracket of agent contact.
Yeah.
So the next thing you need to be looking at with your estate agent is actually how much contact are they actually giving you? Are they actually speaking to you regularly? It doesn't have to be every day necessarily, but are they at least making contact with you once a week? If they're not getting viewings, they need to be making contact with you once a week. It's a little bit easier when you're getting the viewings because you can continuously keep managing and talking through with you and tweaking and changing things to get it right because you're getting the viewings.
Yeah.
But agent contact's key. If you've not or hardly heard from your agent, there has to be a reason why. And in the best will in the world, that's not service. So you need to be looking and thinking, right, is my agent working for me? If they're not speaking to me, it doesn't make it sound like they're that interested in selling my home. We don't know.
Okay.
But when it comes to like photography and different elements like that, ultimately, is the property being set off in its best light?
Okay.
We see a lot of very, very weird and wonderful photos, from the sublime to the ridiculous. They can be dark. They can be at the wrong times.
Cars on driveways.
Cars on
driveways.
driveways. Recent weather. I'm looking through Rightmove today. There are a selection of properties which are being marketed today, which are showing snow in front gardens, back gardens, from when we had that period of snow. Now, yes, okay, it was only a couple of weeks ago, but it takes about a minute to take a new front shot with the sun out that makes it look like it's accurate to the time of year, because that's the big thing. It shows, and you can tell when your home came to the market by the external photos in particular.
And it will date it.
Very much so, yeah,
Okay.
very much so.
So that's the first thing. We'll talk about external photographs. One of the things, again, that we're very keen on doing is what we call rotation. So let's say, for example, if a property's been sat there week after with just the front photograph on it, if you go in as a home buyer, you'll see that same photograph time after time after time. Okay. One of the things, again, even in our managers meeting last month, we actually started to change this around a little bit. We did a rotation, so there's several offices at the moment which have put a lifestyle photograph in. So it could be the kitchen, the lounge, the fireplace, the garden. There's one property in particular that one of the offices have got, and it's a fantastically staged, beautiful photograph of the garden with the patio all laid out, etc. Sitting there on a Sunday morning enjoying the garden, having a coffee. That's a lifestyle thing, where people go, do you know what? That's the sort of lifestyle I'm after. We'll then click through. You mentioned earlier about click-through rates. We'll then click through to have a look at the property details in full, and that's the bit that you want. You've now got rid of the other 20 properties on the page. We've now got their attention for maybe only a minute or two to scoot through and have a look at photographs and look at your property details on a property which otherwise they might not have seen. Or had seen in the past several weeks and sat there and would have ruled it out, but now you're showing them something different. Okay,
and that's the key thing. Sometimes the best sales are from the buyers that didn't think of the property in the first place, and it takes that one photo, that one image, that video, whatever it be, to actually give them a different perception of your home and actually go, wow, this property's perfect for us.
Fantastic. So that's the photographs wise. Let's talk about the text as well, because one of the things that infuriates us as agents is, we see the same text on there, which is just descriptive. Okay. We're delighted to offer for sale.
Everyone's delighted.
Detached property with gas central heating, double glazing, lounge, dining room, kitchen, etc. So let's talk about the text in particular. What sort of advice can you give in regard to what we need to do with text for you as well?
Yeah, the key there is it needs to be an attention grabber. So it needs to be very much the case of a first line, a descriptive line that gets people involved. So we'll use, for an example, let's use a family home. It might be the case of it's walking distance to school. It might be the case of it's the ideal home to grow into because of the size of the rooms. Actually, it's not a home that you can use just for a couple of kids. It's a room that they can grow up and live there until they go through to university. So what you're looking at is not necessarily loads of text, just reeling off all the rooms, because best will in the world, you can see that when you click on the property. It's about an attention grabber. It's all about the attention to detail. It's that that part of the text which draws your attention, which makes you think, wow, this is worth clicking into.
Yep.
So for us, it's about putting maybe just a little caption, close to schools, ideal family home, close to the park,
Yep.
great for the kids. It's different things which are actually going to impact on their lives for what they're looking for with their property.
So you're looking to get their attention and describe a bit more of a lifestyle, not just the property.
Very much so.
Okay, so again, if that's the case, and you've been sitting there for several weeks, just have a look at the description of your property and ask yourself, actually, can that just be be reviewed and freshened up a little bit? Just a change of photographs, change of text can make a huge difference.
Very much so.
Okay, so any other pointers you can give us just in regard to what else the agent could be doing when talking to a vendor who sat there, as I say, for 10-12 weeks now, getting a bit frustrated?
Yeah, I think it's like everything. Your agent should be they shouldn't be waiting this long. That's the first thing I should say. They should be addressing this way before that. And if they're not, you need to be speaking to your agent and finding out why not. But for me, they need to be doing almost like a top-to-toe mini MOT almost.
Yeah.
So they need to be looking at all the description, the photos. Are there floor plans there?
Yeah,
is the for sale board up?
Yeah.
Sometimes recent weather, the for sale board can fall down. It's at an angle. It looks like it's been there forever.
You might not have wanted it at the beginning.
Exactly. So is a for sale board up? Is your price banding right on the websites? Are we accompanying all the viewings? If not, shall we do so? What's the advertising pattern be?
Yeah.
And then if your agent can genuinely say they've done all of that, then there is a point where we then have to sit down and look at price.
Okay.
And then we're talking about price isn't just, I think you should bring it down £10,000 without any sort of rationale. What it needs to be is current and accurate comparable evidence to say, right, this is what the marketplace is doing. These are some recent properties that have sold or how long they've been on the market for. That's your direct competition. Take into account as well what the seller wants to achieve. That's really important. So it's also about your input. So if you need a certain figure, it's a case of what would you take. That's really important. And come to a price which you are mutually happy with, not what the agent has told you.
Okay, fantastic. That's a very good point. There's a couple of little things which I'm just going to throw in here as well. The first thing is, have you been in and spoken to your agent? As in gone into the office and see how busy they are? We mentioned a few weeks ago about some of the killer questions that you need to be asking your agent when you're looking at selling. Maybe time to go back and ask some of those questions. You go, how busy have you been? What levels of interest are you getting generally on all of your properties? How quickly are they taking to sell on average? How many viewings on average are they getting? Where's my property sitting within those ratios? But also, mystery shop your agent. There's many a time where we hear from people who are saying, I'm still sitting on the market. Ring them up, find out what's happening. If you're going to register with the buyer with those agents, what level of service are they getting? Are they actually selling it or are they marketing it? And I think that's one of the key things. The second thing is at the end of the day, it's often the negotiator and the negotiators in the office that end up dealing with the offer. You mentioned going about doing the viewing earlier.
Yep.
Useful exercise maybe for the negotiators, the salespeople, to go out and have a look at that property as well. So when that inquiry comes in, it's much easier to sell the benefits of that property by finding out exactly what the buyer's after and matching that against it. Because a negotiator, a really good negotiator, will be able to take an inquiry on one property and think, actually, do you know what? I've got another couple here that I think is ideal. And if you can say, well, I've been in it, I think this is one you need to go and have a look at. That's the benefit of selling, not just order taking and booking a viewing on something that somebody just rang up for.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, fantastic. Hopefully you found that of interest as well. You might want to just grab a pen and write back some of those things, replay back over the broadcast and write some of those tips down for you. But as I say, a lot of content in there for you. But ultimately our aim, regardless of who you're on the market with, obviously would love your business. And if that's the case, and again, you're still frustrated, give Lewis and the team a call over here. But ultimately, we want to get you moved. That's why it's the Property Show. It's all about property and it's all about our local community. So that's the end of this week's agent advice for you. So the other thing we're going to quickly look at for you, excuse me,
It's a top 10 cough mixtures.
The top 10. We were talking about this last week. It's not getting any better.
No, it's not. But we will get it sorted out come next week.
If I'm not here next week, then you'll be going, there was actually something wrong with it, but he kept on going, won't you? You'll be.
But we have A, people will be happy to see me, and B, we have an able replacement. Marina does need to come back.
That's very true. So we just want to have a quick look at the Telegraph announced this week again about the top places to live in the UK. And in that report, the top place to live in the UK at the moment is York. That came out on top. For many of you who may well have been up and visited York. Again, great cathedral city. But we wanted to have a look at obviously what's happening in our local area as well, so we've narrowed that down to the Midlands. And in our particular area, the closest sort of town city location that was noted in that report was Lincoln. Again, many of you all know Lincoln quite well. What we've looked at is with Lincoln is just in regard to what the average sort of house price for buying and rented is. And within that, we've looked at that the average first-time buyer property over in Lincoln currently sits at 117,300. The mid bracket, so what we call the second-time sellers, the average price there is 158,730, and the average family home, so what we'll class as sort of a 4-bedroom property, is a 255,790. So if we flip that over to the rental market, we go back to that lower level, maybe the first time renter in that bracket is 440 per calendar month, the mid bracket is at 690 per calendar month, and the top bracket as a family home is currently £900 per calendar month. So a little bit of information there. Let's get a little bit closer to home, and further down on that report, coming in at 9th was Stamford. Now Stamford appears in these lists year after year after year, lots of different reasons, and we also then wanted to compare that against, say, Lincoln sitting at 5th position. Now the average first time buyer, so entry level property over in Stamford, is 149,520. That mid bracket is 292,790, and the average family, so again that 4-bedroom sort of detached residence, is coming in at 537,410. Now those two middle sections are nearly double the value of those in Lincoln.
And can I say, bearing in mind, I've spent a few years of my life, even up to recent times, doing some work in the Stamford area as well. 150,000 in Stamford will get you a 1-bed.
Right.
The 292,000 will get you an average 3-bed detached house on a relatively modern housing development, and 537,000 will get you a fairly decent size 4 or 5-bed on a modern housing development. Right. It is obviously it's a town full of history, steeped with obviously tourism, and that's one of the big pulls, of course. And it's shopping, and obviously it's bespoke boutiques and shops and eateries, and all the villages as well that link round it. And kind of just say it's a real bonus to the Bourne market as well,
it is
because
for those buyers.
Let's just use the 149,000 for an example. That will get you a 1-bed on the outskirts of Stamford, won't even be in the middle of Stamford town centre, for the same price 12 miles down the road, not even that, 10 miles down the road, as it is by the crow flies when we go that way from Bourne. You can get a 2-bedroom semi-detached home here. Equally, 292,000 will get you a modern 3-bed detached in Stamford. In Bourne, it'll get you a really good size 4 or 5-bedroom detached modern home, brand new, in a really nice area of Bourne. So what we are finding is a lot of people that live in Stamford are cashing in and selling their homes, taking a lot of equity and banking it, and moving over to somewhere like Bourne, which is a bit more semi-rural, more for your money, but still a great place to live.
Fantastic, great. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of information. The other thing that we wanted to have a look at is obviously how those prices have increased over the last 12 months. Again, two very, very strong markets really. We talked about obviously what's happening in the Bourne market recently in the Rightmove price index earlier. The Lincoln market year on year is 11.4% price increase, and Stamford is 12.9%. So two really, really good booming cities and towns in our immediate area. So again, any information that we get through just in regard to the local housing market and the national, obviously we're keen to bring over to you as well. So there is a lot happening in the marketplace at the moment. So that's the main topics for this evening for you, which we hope you've enjoyed the content of as well. We are, as I say, just trying a little bit of extra software, which I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago. Lots of technology out there at the moment, just so we can bring this broadcast out to you with more content. There'll be lots of sort of illustrations and bits and pieces we're going to start to drop into these rebroadcasts over the next few weeks, so keep a lookout for those. We've also got some great content coming in for next week's show as well, so make sure you tune in next Thursday. That's the Thursday before the Easter period. I don't know whether you can see behind us. No, it's just over in front of us. You've eaten them all? Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. You could have saved me one. You're holding an Easter competition at the moment as well to win some goodies and some Easter eggs.
Yeah, there's two of these. First and foremost, if you are looking to sell your home in the Bourne marketplace, if you give us a call and arrange a valuation and we get your home instructed by the end of the Easter weekend, you'll go into the draw to win some Easter eggs for the kids, or just for yourself. Doesn't have to be for kids. And also, I'm going to launch something start of next week, so Monday, just for the Easter week only, that there will be some Easter eggs. There'll be a little hamper of Easter eggs for you to win. I'm going to put a little post online, which will probably be on Monday, where if you like and share my post and get it out to as many people as possible, I'll put everybody's names into a hat, and there'll be a random draw for a little Easter egg hamper as well. So it'll be a little bit of content from me. Like and share it. Spread it amongst your friends. Free Easter eggs, great way to start the Easter weekend.
Fantastic, great. Well, again, thanks ever so much for watching, and we hope, as I say, that you've enjoyed this week's broadcast. And I say there's plenty of broadcasts from the weeks previously that we're starting to load into our Bourne Property Show YouTube channel, so look out for that. That's coming any day now. We should have that ready, available for the Easter weekend as well. So thanks again for joining with us.
Thank you, and we'll see you next Thursday, 6 o'clock.
And we're being told by Mr. Thorogood, Senior, we need to do this as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So just for you, John.
Yes, there we are. Yes, there we are.
Thanks very much indeed. Have a great week.
Good evening, everybody.